Hey there, it's Ben from patternprofits.net bringing you the weekly watch list, starting off the same way we usually do with IWO, our proxy for small cap growth. We did pull back late last week, sitting right off the anchored VWAP, off of the high volume shelf point of control right there, as well as 10, 20, 50, and 65 MA Cloud, all right in the vicinity there. Early next week, get an idea if we can make the turn here and push up. If growth is going to participate or is it going to roll back over? We should have an idea early next week. We talked about how into the Fed, a lot of times we get some weakness ahead of the Fed. These arrows are the Fed. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Sometimes it's just a little bit of weakness and off we go. That's how it did turn out. Over the last couple of weeks, we had a little bit of weakness ahead of it, basically went sideways. We tried to push out to new highs on Thursday, but basically ended the week flat. I do expect to make the turn here, at least participation on the S&P. If we look at the CPC equity put call ratio from last week, again, another high reading here at 0.59. The last couple times that we've tagged those, this is the S&P 500 at the top, you'll see that we had a nice run following these little peaks. A nice run, another little peak. We got up to 0.63 here. Again, that marked a bottom, and another little rally. Again here, late March, these little peaks tend to give us a nice little run. So that's kind of basically how I'm approaching it for next week, is the expectation, like we said, post-Fed, of pushing into new highs. Sentiment kind of agrees with that. So let's look at some of the individual names next week. CNTY focus list name moves to the number one spot. Problem here is we have earnings on Friday. What may end up happening is if we can get a break above these 1335 pivot here and above these prior peaks, we may get a nice run where we can capture a quick move before earnings. Just be aware that earnings is on Friday. If you don't build enough cushion, kind of tough to hold into that event. Another one, CPE. I happen to be in this one, have been in for a while. Little consolidation now up high, 42.31 the pivot. We kind of came up, tried to test those areas, came back in, have anchored VWAP both from the recent low and the recent high just below, as well as the volume shelf and point of control is right there too. 1020 cloud also, if it comes in just a little bit more, but looking for this to flag out a little bit more, maybe form the handle there, and then eventually break out through that 42.31 pivot. Another focus list name, SSP, cup and handle, traditional cup and handle pattern here. 23.34 standard pivot here has been coming in, may provide an early entry if it can come out of this little handle and break this descending trend line to the upside. Otherwise, the safer and more traditional entry is through the 23.34 pivot. Also, you've been seeing me discuss Goldman Sachs both on FinTwit, and we discussed it a couple weeks ago with the watch list. The symmetrical triangle pattern did play out. We gave a run, didn't quite tag those prior highs, now pulling back just a bit. If this handles out a little bit more, flags out a little bit more, your pivot will be 353.79. If it comes in, if it decides to move above that, 356.85 is the level to watch. You'll see a theme here, and it's, S&P 500 names tend to be working. Intuitive Surgical, another one you've seen me talk about on FinTwit. This one now high and tight. You have descending trend line here, kind of a pennant or triangle forming. You do have the volume shelf right there. If you move this over and then this back, you'll see close right at the point of control on Friday, as well as anchored VWAP from off of the gap. So looking for continued upside here, break the descending trend line, and looking for a continuation to the upside there. Another one you've seen me discussing on FinTwit recently, UNFI. This pattern, we just now got the late actually on Friday. We got the descending trend line break, poked through late in the day, coming off of the volume shelf and point of control, 38.25. The next pivot, you push through there, you can look for a run to the prior highs, 41.35. The prior highs. So we look for that to come up here, maybe flag out a little bit again back here, pull a handle, and then break out to the upside. A couple of power earnings gaps that I'm watching. EFX, Equifax, early in the process here after the power earnings gap, but I do like to keep an eye on these early. You can see a couple of nice little hammers off the anchored VWAP from the gap. Volume shelf point of control just above, so seeing if that can push through, make some continued upside progress. Similarly, PPG, a similar looking pattern there. Same thing, same setup. The big gap, power earnings gap, big volume, anchored VWAP from off of the gap acting as support, volume shelf point of control just above. Same thing here. See if that can make the turn and make some continued upside progress. One that from a little further back, Canada Goose. Again, same type of play. This one's just from the prior earnings gap. Get that. There we go. You had the big gap on the big volume back here. Now you have anchored VWAP acting as resistance late last week. Volume shelf point of control is just above. Want to see if that can push through. You do have kind of a small double bottom or consolidation here, but see if that can push through anchored VWAP from off of the gap. You can throw another one here from off of the high, and you'll see it kind of right there. So looking for that to make the turn. Either get them as it comes out of that little consolidation here and turns up, or wait for it to make that move coming up and then grab it on the retest when it comes back in before the bounce. Anyway, that's my watch list for next week and what I will be watching. I think there's a good chance, the S&P, like we talked about, puts in higher. The big question is whether growth names will participate in that move. Hope you guys have a great trading week, and I will see you over on FinTwit.